Hi there, you're listening to the Estranged Heart podcast, and I'm your host, Kreed Revere. Welcome back to our returning listeners, and if this is your first time here, thank you for selecting this podcast to listen to. As we begin today's episode, I invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and listen with an open heart. But first, the regular disclaimer, I am not a licensed therapist or counselor. Nothing within this podcast should be considered or taken as therapy. If you are in need of therapeutic support, such as counseling, please seek out a therapist near you. Announcements and reminders. I'm still looking for questions that you want to have answered. So if you have ever thought while listening to an episode, I really wish Kreed would discuss more about this, or that she would discuss this topic or that topic, please send me an email. I'd love to hear what you want to hear more about. And because this is, after all, this podcast is for you and my listeners, and fulfilling what you need and want to hear about. So feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm happy to take a look at that. And the email will be in the show notes. A reminder that the validation workshop is coming up a week from today. So on Sunday, August the 28th, from 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, it will be via Zoom. And if you are interested in that, you may find out more about that on the website. You can go to the website and sign up for that and pay for the class as well. And again, information on the website will be in the show notes as well. There is a forthcoming workshop in November for amends letters. And what are they? What should they include? What should they not include? When to send them? How long to wait after sending them? All of the things related to amends letters will be included in that workshop. And that's, as I said, coming in November. The Zoom support group for estranged moms will begin Saturday, September 3rd, beginning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're interested in that, please, again, go to the website. That's where you can sign up and pay there for each of those meetings. And those will be every other Saturday. And so, yeah, if you're an estranged mom and looking for more quote unquote in person as we can be, and be international on Zoom and in more real time, please consider joining us for that. And if you have any questions regarding that, please feel free to email me. I am also still searching for estranged adult children to participate in the online support group for estranged adult children and estranged parents not from the same family. So if you are an estranged adult child and you're interested in participating in that support group, it will be online, not on Zoom, at least not yet. That is my end goal. Hopefully we can nurture an environment where every participant would feel safe enough to be on Zoom, and so that we can learn from one another. If you're interested in that, either as an estranged parent or an estranged adult child, please feel free to email me. There will be a heavy vetting process involved in those who are permitted to join that group, because the focus is all about learning from one another, not about judging and not about pointing fingers and those types of things. So there is a heavy vetting process involved with that, and I will need to meet with each participant prior to being admitted to the group. Again, more information can be found, or you could email me for information about that. I have not posted that on the website as of yet. And I just want to also thank you, send out a thank you to those of you who have taken the time to write a review of the podcast. It's helpful to it helps to rank the podcast, but more importantly, by the ranking, it gets the podcast out to more people. So it's not a matter of, I want the podcast to rank in a specific position. at all. That's not what it's about. But the higher it ranks, the more people have access to it, and therefore the more people will have support. So those of you who have taken the time to write a review of the podcast, I'm super grateful. Thank you for taking time out of your day to do that, but also helping to support others who are going through this estrangement experience as well, and being able to find support. So thank you again for that. On to our quotes for today. Today I have 3. The first one is, all you can change is yourself, but sometimes that changes everything. And that is by Gary Goldstein. The second, to solve our most difficult problems, we must radically change our thinking. And that is by Stephen Covey. And the third is, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. And that is by Nelson Mandela. So today's episode is titled The Chase versus Letting Them Be. And this is something that I see the chase happening with estranged parents chasing the estranged adult child. I see that so many times. I would venture to say probably in most every estrangement experience. And then the letting them be, I rarely see. And yet it is the one thing that it is one of a few things that I see that brings the adult children back to the parent and helping them to want to come back to the parent. So I wanted to chat more about that today in hopes of helping estranged parents to understand why the chase doesn't work, why they're doing it, and how to stop that, and why letting them be, and notice I say letting them be and not letting them go. Okay? But why letting them be can serve to heal you as a parent and them as the adult child. And in the end, bring the two of you back together. So let's start with the chase. What I tend to see with estranged parents is, and I did this myself, so I'm intimately familiar with what the chase is all about. But what I typically see is a parent who is in panic mode because they either feel their child quote unquote slipping away from them. So the beginnings of estrangement, the distancing, the fewer phone calls, the fewer visits, those types of things, or full-on estrangement. But I see the parent in panic mode. And when we panic, it's coming from a place of fear, right? We feel them pulling away from us. And as a parent, when you have taken care of, you have birthed and or brought a child into your world, you have taken care of them, you have directed them, you have taught them, you have saved them, you have done all the things that a parent does. And it's not taught to us to learn how to let them go. When it comes time, it's a natural occurrence for them to want to move away from us, to want to individuate from us, to become their own person. We did it with our parents did it with their parents. Every human being does this. It's a natural evolution. However, what has not been taught to us is how do we let go as a parent to allow them to individuate in a way that is healthy for them and healthy for us, yet maintain the relationship. We're not taught that. We're not taught how to do that. So a parent panics. They freak out because they feel their kid moving away from them. And if you are an individual who has not learned who you are as a person, meaning what lights you up? Who are you outside of being a parent? Who are you outside of your children? Do you do things on your own? Do you have hobbies and interests outside of your children? Or is your world your children? Right? Because if you have not figured out who you are beyond being a parent, you are going to want to grab, and cling to that which you identify with. And if your world only involves your children, you will do that with them. Okay? Now, for those of us, such as myself, my world did not revolve around my children. As a matter of fact, probably to the opposite end of the spectrum, where I didn't include my children enough. So I didn't come at it from that perspective, but I did panic when the estrangement first occurred, because for me, I had been used to being in control of everything. And then when the estrangement occurred, I was no longer in control. And so what I knew, i.e. control, that's what I knew. And when that disappeared, I panicked because I didn't know what to do in my world when I couldn't have control over things. So when we don't know who we are, or we don't know how to do anything else other than A, if we don't have a B and a C and a D in our life, and I don't mean that as in children, meaning child A, child B, child C. I'm meaning children as in A, hobbies as in B, C as in career, like those types of things, right? If we don't have those B, C, and D's in our world and we're only focused on our kids, we are going to freak out and panic when they start to pull away from us. So when they pull away from us, we chase. Okay? I liken this in a way to when I was young and dating, and I had my eyes set on a young man that I wanted to be with, and he didn't want to be with me, and he would leave and I would chase, right? Or vice versa. If you're a man and you see a woman that you want to date and she doesn't want to date you and she goes the opposite direction, and then you give chase, right? And what does that do? It makes that person that you're chasing want even more so to have nothing to do with you, because they have said in some form or fashion, I do not want to be near you or in conversation with you or in relationship with you right now. Our children are saying that. I don't think that they may say, I don't ever want communication with you, but I truly believe that deep down inside, it's not something that they're conscious of, but I don't think that they ever want to totally sever connection with us. That just kind of goes against who we are as human beings. However, in a fit of rage or being mad or pissed off, whatever the case may be, they may say that they don't ever want to see us again. But the reality is, if we're chasing them, if you're just, sending them cards and calling them and texting them and begging them and, please tell me what I've done wrong, and I don't understand this, and why can't we just talk about it? When do you think that we might be able to talk about it? Well, it's been 2 weeks. Do you think we could talk now? When we do those things, we're chasing them. And when they've asked for space, and even if they haven't asked for space, literally asked for it, if they are moving away from us, that is them saying, I want space. So the healthiest thing that we can do is to give them that space. It doesn't mean that you have to walk away from them and throw your hands up in the air and say, to hell with them then. Fine, if they want space, then to hell with them. They can live on their own. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, allow them room to breathe. And in the meantime, figure out who you are. Get curious about, why are you chasing? Why are you constantly sending them things? I had a friend who asked me one time, I wanted to send a letter to someone. And she said, and I was contemplating, should I send the letter? Should I not send the letter? I don't know if I should send the letter. And she said to me, what are you hoping to gain by sending the letter? And I looked at her like she had 3 heads. Seriously, I didn't understand what she was saying. And so I asked her that. I was like, what are you talking about? What do I want to gain? What do I want to gain? I don't want to gain anything. I want this person to have this letter from me. And she said again, and again, I'll say, what are you wanting to happen by sending that letter? And then it hit me. Oh, I want a response. And she said, okay, fine. And then what happens if you don't get that response? Or you don't get a response? Then what? Are you going to regret having sent the letter? Are you going to wish you had not? Are you going to say, well, then screw them? Or what is your response going to be? And I had to when I got real and honest with myself, I wanted to send the letter because I wanted my voice heard and I wanted a response, the response I wanted. And I thought that by sending the letter, I'd get that response. And I was so wrong. So I apply that to estrangement today. If you're sending birthday cards and Christmas presents and birthday gifts and, you're I've heard things like, well, I'm just going to box up then all of their things and I'm just going to send it to them and they'll have to sign for it. Or I'm going to box it up and just go leave it on their porch. Or I'm going to make this lovely album of their childhood so that they'll remember what, all the happy times. And I think to myself, why are you doing that? Are you doing it for them? Or are you doing it for you? So that you feel better, so that you have less guilt, so that you don't have something on your conscience, so that you feel better about things. If that is your reasoning for doing it, then I'd invite you to get curious about that. Because when we give to others, it really should benefit them, not benefit us. It might benefit us, but that should be secondary. Primary reason should be for them. And if it's for them, we really need to stop and think about, is this something that's important to them? While a lovely album of a childhood might be something that we find important, doesn't necessarily mean that they do, or that they do right now. Right? So again, I invite you to get curious about that, because that fuels the chase. Figuring out why we are doing it. Okay? In order to stop the chase, we've got to come out of the panic. And to get out of the panic, one of the first things I suggest to the moms that I work with, estranged moms I work with, is getting into the here and now and accepting what is your reality today and not what you think it should be. Right? So the reality is you're estranged. Not, this shouldn't be happening. Not, but I'm their mom. They should not do this to me. They owe me. Stop. Time out. None of that. You have to accept where you're at. And then it's getting curious about you. Again, coming back. Who are you outside of your children? It's easier to let something be or let someone be when we have other things that we can continue to do in our life and other things that we can be involved in our life. And we don't tend to sit and ruminate and mull over and go over and over and just make ourselves crazy, replaying things in our heads. So I invite you to get curious about that. Who are you and what makes you happy outside of your children? That is a heavy, heavy burden for your child. And I will put this in context to another experience I had with this same friend who asked me about the letter, what I was hoping to gain by sending this letter to someone. She also asked me, she told me one time, when it came to my partner, I was making comment about how my partner was my best friend and, my confidant and my travel mate and my lover and my, just my person, my roommate, was everything, basically, was what I was saying, is that this person was my everything. And my friend said to me, she said, man, that is so much pressure to put on someone to fulfill your every need as far as relationships go. And again, I thought, this woman is crazy. What is she talking about? And then I sat with that. And I thought, how would I want to be? How would I feel if someone looked at me as being their everything? And I thought, I don't want that. That's way too much pressure. That's too much to let down. That's too much to live up to. And so we do that with our children. When we are overly involved and they consume all parts of our lives, that is so much pressure on them to be, I hear moms, especially moms and daughters, and I hear moms say, we were best friends. We talked about everything. We shared everything. We went to the movies together. We went to concerts together. She introduced me to all of her friends. And every time I hear that, I think, oh my goodness, the amount of pressure that's put on that child to be your confidant, to be your best friend, to be the keeper of your secrets, to be your, the person that does events with you, the person who checks in on you and has to make sure that you're okay, the person who, that is it's just so much pressure. It's so much pressure. And that can lead people to walk away from us because it just gets to be too much. So when we can come back home to ourselves, we are not only giving a gift to ourselves, we're also giving freedom to our children. And we're allowing them to have their life. Yes, do we want to be included? Absolutely. Do we want to be invited? Do we want to, have lunches and talks and chats and things like that? Absolutely. But we cannot and should not be everything to our children, and nor should they be everything to us. So when I talk about letting them be, I am talking about building trust with your estranged adult child. If they've asked for no contact, if they've asked for space, and you honor that, that is a step to building trust, rebuilding trust with your child. If you back off and unburden them from having to be everything to you, that is another block of the trust foundation that is laid out. We have to come back. We have to come back to ourselves. Our children are trying to find themselves. And the way that they are trying to find themselves is not up for us to deem appropriate or inappropriate. They are on their own path. They deserve to find and explore that path in their own way and in their own time. Our job as parents is to be there as a consultant, as Dr. Coleman says, right? To move out of that managerial role and into that of a consultant, to be there for them if they ask for support. Otherwise, to sit back in the background and simply be there when they are ready to engage with us. Chasing them does nothing but push them away. I invite you to think about how you would feel if someone were chasing you and you did not want them to. It really is a gift. I know as an estranged mom how scary it is to be in that space of my kids have left and I don't know what to do. I remember that feeling. I remember that feeling very, very well. And in the end, that feeling was mine to own, not my kids. It wasn't up to my kids to take that feeling away, to make me feel better, to give me what I wanted. That's not what it was about. It was up to me to figure out what in my life, where was I lacking, and hanging everything on my kids instead. And when I gave them that freedom and I backed off, and this is what I see with most reconciled cases, they naturally gravitated back towards me. Again, it's not going to happen, it's not going to be don't come at me with your, that's not my case and things like that. If that's what you're thinking right now, I would invite you to get curious about that and honest, because many times it is, and we're just afraid to look at it truthfully. and honestly. But at coming home to myself, figuring out who I was, even though I wasn't the enmeshed and close parent, I was the controlling parent, I still did not know who I was outside of this person who controlled everything. And I did that in all of my relationships. And all of my relationships were unhealthy. You know, I had a mom say the other day, but I'm a nurturer. And so it's my job to nurture people. And I thought, well, maybe. But how are you going about that nurturing? Might be nurturing to you, but it may not feel very nurturing to the other person. Okay. So this brings this episode to a close. I hope that this time together was time you feel well spent, and that you were able to find some takeaway nuggets to help you on your journey, wherever you may be on your estrangement or reconciliation path. If you feel you've received something helpful or positive from this podcast, please consider following us, sharing this podcast with others, leaving a positive review, or becoming a financial supporter. You can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the same name, The Estranged Heart. And lastly, if you are an estranged parent or an estranged adult child and would like to have your story shared on the podcast, anonymously or not, please reach out via email to theestrangedheart@gmail.com. Until next time.